Hey guys, how's it going? Got some information here for you on the Maverick sponsorship program. I've been getting a lot of questions about the school, and there's this the new school they've got down at the North Little Rock campus, and been getting a lot of questions, a lot of emails about it, and I figured I would just throw a video together. I spoke with a recruiter yesterday to answer some of the questions that I didn't already know the answers to, and I got the literature that they sent out from one of my referral guys who's at Little Rock campus right now. He actually just finished up the CDL program, and a couple guys actually sent me information on it, so I really appreciate that. But I learned a few things and wanted to just pass them on your way. So the first thing that I learned talking to this recruiter is that this is the same sponsorship program that Maverick has had for like the last 7 or 8 years. They've had a relationship with a couple of schools. There's a Newport school, I think, is affiliated with it's either University of Arkansas or Arkansas State, and then they've got another school. It's like Diesel Driving School or something like that. And there were guys when I was going through orientation and securement training who were participating in that or had just finished, getting their CDL through that. So it's the same program. The only thing that's different now is that there's a location on the Maverick campus, on the Maverick, at the Maverick terminal in North Little Rock. So that's the first thing to note. The program itself is not new. It's been going on for a long time. The only thing new is that they have a campus. They have a location now that Maverick owns and operates. It's on the North Little Rock site. The other thing I should say just before getting into the details, one of the things I realized straight away talking to this recruiter was that a lot of the details of how the sponsorship program works depends on your own particular situation. Namely where you're from, where you live, because Maverick has different needs for drivers depending on a particular area, how saturated the area is, how much freight goes through that area. So one of the guys who I had talked to told me that part of the agreement that they settled on for his contract with Maverick is that he has to run USA for 6 months before he can sign on to a regional division. But that was just unique to that guy's situation. It was unique to where he lived and what Maverick's needs were for drivers at that time. So if you're thinking about going through the sponsorship program, definitely call a recruiter and talk to them about, even, the timing, the length of the schooling depends on what school you're going to. Just call and talk and work out the details. So what I'm going to be telling you, it's basically just outlining the whole process in general terms. So one of the other things that I learned was that the contract, so it's a 2-year contract, but the contract is not binding in the same way that you see in some of these mega fleets, these kind of predatory contracts where they promise you the moon and get you to sign on the bottom line. Right below all that small print that basically says they now own your ass, and you're stuck with them. And if you break the contract, it's going to go on your record, or I don't know if it goes on your CDL or where it goes, but if you're not unhireable after that, you certainly are undesirable to a future employer. So it's not that kind of a contract. And the basic goal that they have with the contract is just to make sure that you're going to pay them back. And if you pay them back early, then you have, you no longer are bound by contract. It's basically a contract to pay them back the money that they loaned you. And I'll talk about my philosophy on loans here in a minute. But the money that they loaned you, it's an assurance that you're going to get it, that they're going to get that money back. So it's not a contract in the same way that you hear about all these horror stories that you hear out here about guys who sign contracts with companies and it's just the beginning of the end for them. One of the other things I'm not clear on is so the tuition the value of the tuition, that they say the sticker price was $6,000, but the amount deducted from your paycheck is $30 per week for 2 years. Now, if my math serves me right, 2 years would be about 100 weeks, and 100 weeks at $30 a week would be about $3,000. So I don't exactly know. I'll add something to this once I figure that out. That remains a mystery. I didn't catch that when I was talking to him. But so one of the other really important things to know about going down to Little Rock, regardless of whatever of the 3 schools you end up going to, is that you're going to be going for an extremely long period of time without a paycheck. And this is really something to get your head around before going down. And I think this is something that the recruiting team really tries to instill in you as well, based on this recruiter, what this recruiter was telling me, who I was speaking with. So when I went through, if you go down there with your CDL, right? If you already have CDL in hand and you go through the Maverick orientation and training process, you get paid $600 a week for orientation, $600 a week for securement training, and then $600 a week for each week that you're out in the trainer truck, right? It's the same thing if you do the CDL school, but the timing gets a little bit funky, right? If you go with your CDL, you get a job offer on that Thursday, the end of your orientation week. So orientation week is an abbreviated week. It's Sunday through Thursday. Thursday you get your job offer, and as soon as you're an employee, you start in on your securement training and so forth. And that first week, you get paid out just like every other Maverick employee gets paid out. So the work week at Maverick is Sunday to Saturday, and that chunk of time that you worked gets paid out the following week on generally Friday morning. So you get that direct deposit the following week on Friday morning. So if you go in with your CDL, you go to your orientation, you do your orientation for a week, you get that $600 check. If you're going with no experience, if you're going in with experience, obviously you already got your CDL. So you're going in with no experience, $600 a week, you're going to get that check the following Friday. That's not the case if you're doing the CDL sponsorship program. You start out with your orientation week, but you don't get a job offer that Thursday. You start your CDL schooling after you're done with orientation. You don't get paid that $600 until after you've gotten through the CDL schooling. You don't get your job offer until you've gotten through your CDL schooling and passed the CDL test. So you don't get paid, and you don't get paid for any of the CDL weeks. Obviously, you're borrowing money from them. They're not going to pay you to be there if they're already paying your way through school. You get I believe it's a $520 stipend at the beginning of your CDL school, but that's $520 to pay for, whatever fees and whatnot you've got to pay down at the DMV to get your license, and there's probably going to be some change left over, but that's $520 over 4 weeks. So, and it's 4 weeks of CDL school, 5 weeks including the orientation week. So you've got 5 full weeks, and then another week to wait till the paycheck comes before you're going to be getting any money, right? You really got to get your head around that. Before going down there. If you're footloose and fancy free and you don't have bills to pay, and you're young and don't have any attachments, then it could be something that works out really well. But just know that before going in. Another thing that is important to note is that only one of these 3 schools, the Newport school, tests out on manual transmissions. So you got to get some clarity around what your long-term goals are as a driver. And if you see yourself as a company driver, whether it's with Maverick or another company, maybe you've got some company local to you that you're interested in working for, but they require 6 months or a year or 2 years experience or whatever the case may be, and they run automatics, then you're good to go. If you're thinking, Maverick is where it's at for you for the long term, then you're good to go. You can test out on an automatic. But if you test out on an automatic, you've got a restriction on your license which says that you can't drive for a company that that has manual transmission trucks. So, or you can't drive for yourself. If you want to go owner operator at some point, and you have that restriction on your license, you're going to have to go back and test out again to get that restriction removed from your CDL. And obviously, if you don't have a truck to practice on, you don't know how to drive a transmission, which means you're going to fail your test if you go to test out. You're going to have to go through some kind of a CDL school program, even if it's only for a week, to familiarize yourself with how to drive a 10-speed. So it's a whole it's a big pain in the ass down the road just waiting for you if you end up needing to have that option to drive a manual transmission. So just be clear about what your future goals are driving. And all of the big fleets, Maverick's 100% automatic, TMC's 100% automatic. Most of your bigger fleets, everything, if it's not all transition to automatics, it's on its way. So it really depends on what you're after. I think in terms of home time, so it looks like after you're done with the CDL training, you go home just for a couple of days. And I'm assuming Maverick pays for that like they do, if you're gone, I think it's 6 or 7 weeks or something like that. If you go there with your CDL and your training on the road ends up taking, longer than 4 or 5 weeks, they'll get you home for a full week, and they pay the value of a Greyhound bus, to and fro. Or they have your trainer come and pick you up and drop you off, right? So there's no out-of-pocket expense. I believe you actually get paid for that week, even though you're home. But you're only home for a couple, 3 days, Rock. Just imagine you've been in Little Rock 5 weeks. You get home for a weekend, and then you're back in Little Rock for securement training a week. And then you're out on the road for, 3 to 5 weeks. That's a lot of time to be away from home. So just know what you're getting into and how little time you're going to be home. And that's a good segue, I guess, into my spiel on taking out a loan in general. I mean, it's not a predatory kind of contract that you're signing. They're not out to use you and abuse you, chew you up and spit you out like a lot of these companies do. So that's a good thing. It's purely based on paying them back for what they fronted you, for the tuition costs and so forth. So that all lines up. You're signing on with a good company. But I just don't like the idea of going into debt if you don't have to. You run the risk of having it come back to bite you in the end. If something were to go wrong, say in your first month driving, you don't have experience, something happens, there's a preventable accident, and it's severe enough that Maverick, fires you. What are you going to do at that point? You owe them $6,000 now. What if something happens at home? So you got some situation, some family member falls sick or something like that, or I don't know. There's always something that can come up. That ends up, changing the game plan. Being gone all week, week after week, it's a unique lifestyle, and it's not conducive to taking care of things at home should those things arise. So just be careful, I guess, is all I'm saying. It's a huge commitment time-wise to be away from home. If you really don't have the cash to pay for your CDL schooling, the thing I would recommend you check out are grant programs or scholarship programs in your state or in your area. There are different community colleges that'll offer scholarships and whatnot. There are different grants available that are, it's all about job training and getting people, engaged in the workforce and whatnot. So just explore those options and look into them, see what's out there, and see if there's any way that you can get. The other advantage of getting your CDL at home, if you're working right now, even if it takes, say, 3 months to do a nights and weekends program, at least you're home, at least you still got money coming in, and when you do finally make it down to Little Rock, you're not beholden to anybody. You're a free agent. You don't have to sign a contract. You don't have to commit to 2 years, right? That being said, everybody's situation is different. I think if you're going to, go into debt and take that risk, the risk is probably as low as it could possibly be with a company like Maverick. So You know, you got to do what you got to do. You know, everybody's got their own decisions to make in these, you know, in these areas. So, I think that's all I got. Yeah, so I hope that answers the questions. I mean, most of the questions that I had coming into me, I know I covered here. So if you got any other questions, by all means, shoot me an email. Leave a comment. If you got any other information that I did not know about, that I was not privy to, you know, leave that in the comments as well. And we'll catch you next time.